Decades ago, the dimensional storm broke out on Earth. A large number of gods, fairies, ghosts, monsters, angels, demons, elves, and other legendary dimensional beings were discovered, and they were categorized into four classes: mortals, legends, epic, and mythical, with mortal being the lowest class and mythical being the strongest. Humans were at the bottom of the mortal class. However, they could raise their constitution and evolve into higher life forms through cultivating their primordial energy and hunting dimensional beasts for their dimensional crystals. Present day, in a classroom, the teacher calls out Zhou Wen's name, but he is asleep, and the teacher starts to remember how good Zhou Wen used to do in class and how much hope everyone had in him till 1 month ago when he was challenged by a girl who just transferred in. At the time, the students around couldn't believe someone who just transferred in was challenging the number one of their school on their first day, and what more, it was a girl. Zhou Wen asked the girl if they had met before, but she just replies, "Come." Then Zhou Wen replies that he won't hold back. Then it cuts to Zhou Wen being one shot KO'd. The surrounding students were shocked that Zhou Wen got KO'd and were asking what her name was, and it cuts back to the teacher, thinking it was because of Anjing, the girl who defeated Zhou Wen, that made him lose all motivation, sleep, and game all day. While reminiscing, the bell rings, and Zhou Wen bolts out of the class, goes to the badminton court, and pulls out a mysterious phone to start gaming. While thinking about his life and how it changed ever since he obtained it. The game in the phone is the reason he stopped paying attention to class and cultivation. To play the game, you first turn on the phone with a drop of blood, then you open the copied app, then you create a character with another drop of blood. Upgrading the character in the game also upgrades his abilities in real life. A primordial energy crystal drops after Zhou Wen kills a mortal class figure ant, and he absorbs it, and the feedback from the character upgrade raises his ability in real life, and he checks his stats in game, which can be seen in real life, and compares it to a month ago. The only downside is that the crystal can't be brought into real life. While Zhou Wen is musing, his character is attacked by a very mutated figure ant, and he is quickly surrounded by figure ants. Meanwhile, in real life, Frank Rogi approaches, and Zhou Wen is stuck in a fix because he can't exit the battle, and he doesn't want her to discover the secret in the phone. At this moment, Fang Roji says she's finally found him, and he replies, "What?" And she invites him to join her team for the graduation exam. Zhou Wen asks why she is inviting him to her team after he got beaten, and she says he is still Zhou Wen, and the only person she considers her rival. And then he asks what position she will put Anjing in, but Fang Roji tells him she already transferred schools immediately after defeating him, so she thought she specially came to beat him. But Zhou Wen says there's no way, because he had never met her before, and then he accepts her offer to join her team, and she tells him to meet them at the place they train every day, and then she leaves. Zhou Wen finally kills the mutated mountain and grabs its crystal, just before he is killed in the game. While he stands up about to start heading home, he gets the feedback from the character upgrade, and it was so violent he had to check his stats in game, and he notices a new vitality skill got it from the skill crystal. And then we see Zhou Wen with the other members of the team. Fang Roji is introducing him to the other two team members, but they have some concerns about his strength and offer to bring someone else, but Fang Roji says she thinks Zhou Wen is the best person. So they propose a small test. If he can defeat the weakest in the team, he will be able to join. But Zhou Wen thinks it's better to use a strength tester so no one will be injured. So they go to the strength tester, and the guy asks who should go first, and Zhou Wen says he's fine either way, and the guy goes first and hits a number 7. Then Zhou Wen follows up and hits a 10, with the sound of the punch resounding through the school. And his homeroom teacher hears the sound and begins to watch him on their test, and notices Zhou Wen's score on the screen, and he was shocked because he thought he had been slacking off and stuff. But he now has a paradigm shift and starts to think if Zhou Wen was sleeping in class because he trained himself very hard. The opponent tells Zhou Wen he can join the team, but still doesn't end the challenge. This time he uses a vitality skill, Thunder Fist, to throw a punch and gets higher than Zhou Wen with an 11. And Zhou Wen, just before hitting one, asks if he'll have to pay if he damages the tester, and the guy said he'll pay for it if he does. So our MC gets ready to punch the tester, but this time with a vitality skill. And the challenger was thinking about how Zhou Wen is so full of himself, thinking about breaking the tester when its limit is 20, and only a few high schoolers can reach it, much less break it. Then Zhou Wen throws a punch, this time with a vitality skill, and everyone around is shocked because the tester is completely wrecked, especially the teacher, because he knows that the tester having a limit of 20 doesn't mean it can only stand a strength of 20, but you'll need at least a rank 8 vitality skill to pass that. While analyzing, he remembers that the former principal of the school told him previously that there are two kinds of geniuses in the world, Zhou Wen and others. After the test, they disperse and Zhou Wen gets on a call with his dad and asks him about the origin of the mysterious phone and asks him if it's his, but his dad says it's Zhou Wen's grandpa's. Zhou Wen asks where his grandpa got it from and his dad replies that his grandpa was a carpenter and worked in the Gyude ancient city, where he found the phone in a dried up well one day while working. He noticed it because there was a vague twinkling light that made them think there was a treasure down there, but as they got to the bottom, they saw a decaying wooden box with a light coming out of it through the many cracks running along its body, and in there was a phone, but the phone went off like the battery died. Immediately they took it out, and they noticed it had no buttons or charging port to charge it. So they thought someone was playing a trick on them, and his grandpa just chucked it into his toolkit and forgot about it. His dad said that he had tried to get the phone repaired a couple times before, and even tried to sell it, but he was told it was worthless. So he just left it in the cookie box. Zhou Wen found it in, and he brushed off the topic and invites Zhou Wen to his wedding, and cuts the call. Zhou Wen stands there and thinks about the information he had just received, and decides to look for more clues in the combat test since it's also in Gyude ancient city. So Zhou Wen's life is on track and he has a little routine going, and a few days pass. A bright early morning we see a big shot with bodyguards turn up at the school, and then soon after his teammates start apologizing and leaving the team. Even Fang Ruoji approaches him and starts to apologize, but he cuts her off and says it's okay because he realizes that he had been targeted and it's his fault that they got implicated, and he tells her to find another teammate so they'll get a good score. If not, he'll feel bad, and Fang Ruoji warns him about how terrifying the person who's coming after him is, and tells him to be careful. Zhou Wen is worried as he walks down the school corridor. The combat test is really important, where he's supposed to find new, trustworthy teammates. At that moment, his teacher arrives, almost like an angel, and brings him into his office and tells him about Auntie Anzu, the big shot who's celebrating and criticizing him. Zhou Wen asks who exactly Auntie Anzu is. His teacher says the Earth Federation is divided into 4: North, East, South, West, and Auntie Anzu is from the An family who controls the East, and he's a high-ranking official that holds real power in the East area's military. Zhou Wen is taken aback and asks if he really has something against him, but his teacher says that might not be the case. It might just be people trying to curry favor with the warlord who are doing it. Zhou Wen is angry at Auntie Anzu for criticizing him without thinking about how it will affect him, and then he notices that Auntie Anzu has the same surname as Anjing, who defeated him a while ago, and asks his teacher. He says they can find out later, but they have to figure out his team for the upcoming test, since the deadline is the day after tomorrow. And since Zhou Wen can't be in a normal team, he offers to introduce Zhou Wen to the team of a student named Li Juan in exchange for Zhou Wen helping him get a good score. Zhou Wen asks if he'll have to fight on Li Juan's behalf, and the teacher, Mr. Yu, replies, and Zhou Wen asks him to help him contact Li Juan. It's late when Zhou Wen leaves school, and on the way back home he phones his dad and asks if he knows anyone called Auntie Anzu, and his dad is surprised and asks him how he knew Auntie Anzu is his brother. Zhou Wen is a bit overwhelmed, and his dad starts to explain how Tianzhu is his soon-to-be wife's son. Her name is Xiaolan, and therefore he'll be his brother, and he says he also has a sister called Anjing. Cold sweat runs down Zhou Wen's face at the realization. Zhou Wen then asks how his relationship with Antianzo and Anjing is, and he says they both respect and honor him. Zhou Wen cuts the call and starts to think about why they treated him the way they did. Maybe they didn't really agree with the marriage from the bottom of their heart. Zhou Wen attributes everything he had experienced to his weakness. If he was very powerful, would they have dared to do what they did? Zhou Wen finally gets into his house, and a few days go past, and he had been grinding mutated figure ants, but none of them had dropped any crystals since the first one dropped the essence energy skill crystals. While thinking of how much his luck sucks, something drops. It's a companion beast egg, which means he has a chance to gain a companion beast. Zhou Wen touches the egg and it immediately bursts apart, with red aura and slight murmurs. His body is wrecked with pain and he blacks out. When he opens his eyes, his head was pounding and he notices a mark on the back of his hand. He guesses it means the companion beast had hatched, so he enters the game and checks it out. He sees all its information, even its companion beast form, which is a glove, and he summons it to take a look. So when he's stumped when he realizes he doesn't know how to summon it, so he wings it and just decides to concentrate on the scarlet color and the figure ant skill. It works and a rugged red glove is summoned onto his hand. He wants to try it out but remembers he's at home and it could get destroyed, so he just decides to see the companion beast in its base form, an ant. A large, scary, savage-looking ant presents itself before him and he wants to ride it. The next day, Mr. Yun, his teacher, drives him to meet his new team leader, Li Juan, and gives him some information about him. They get to his house and it's very luxurious. Mr. Yun tells the female butler that they are there for the Li family's second young master, and they are led to a spacious room with exquisite decorations, where they see Li Juan hugging two beauties while drinking. He invites the teacher for some drinks, but he refuses because he had to teach that afternoon. He then goes on to introduce Zhou Wen to Li Juan, and Li Juan accepts to take him into his team on his account, and then the teacher leaves to give them space to relate. Zhou Wen thanks him on his way out. Zhou Wen, Li Juan and the two girls remain in the room, and Li Juan asks Zhou Wen if he was the genius he heard about, and he replies it's all just rumors, that he shouldn't take them seriously. Li Juan agrees with him and says there's no way such a small place will have a true genius, and how a true genius won't be beaten in just one move. He then goes on to tell Zhou Wen to forget about practice and teamwork and just follow them obediently when the test starts, to which Zhou Wen agrees to. Li Juan finds Zhou Wen's concentration on his game interesting and whispers to a girl by his side to go and tease him, and she comes up to him and asks if his game is more fun than her, and then offers for them to do something more interesting. But Zhou Wen is invested and is in an intense situation in the game. When she noticed he wasn't paying any attention to her, she turns his head away from the game to face her, and at that moment a red mutated figure ant pounces towards his character. He's about to die, so he shoves her away and keeps playing the game. Li Juan loses his marbles and bursts out laughing while spraying water. And that's when Zhou Wen's character finally dies, and Li Juan takes another look at Zhou Wen and finds him even more interesting. It's the middle of the night and a blanket of darkness covers the sky. And our MC is still at Li Juan's house. He had been challenging the silver-winged ant in the game all night, yet his tries all ended in failure. So he wonders if he can combine two different fist techniques in real life, so his character will be able to defeat the silver-winged ant in the game. He puts his thoughts into action, and this is when Li Juan wakes up from sleep, walks to the guest room and sees Zhou Wen training, and he wonders what he is practicing, but he is quickly disappointed because he sees some flaws in his inch fist techniques, so he goes back to sleep. It's early the next morning and the entrance exam is underway. Zhou Wen and the other students quickly finish the written test and they are taken in a bus to Guide ancient city for the combat test. Decades ago, a dimensional rift opened in this town, turning it into a dimensional zone, and due to the energy of the dimensional rifts, the vegetation of the city became abnormally abundant. Soldiers and tanks were stationed around to take care of any situation that may come up, and no one was allowed to visit it. And this is where the college entrance exams physical battle begins. Zhou Wen and other students alighted from the bus, but Li Juan and his other teammates hadn't arrived yet, so he opted to wait for them. And while waiting, he discovers a weird symbol near the sign of the city. It looked like an engraved paw print. While he is curiously sizing it up, a vibration comes from his pocket, and he thinks it's his dad calling, but he discovers that the vibration is coming from the mysterious phone. He pulls it out and he's surprised because it had never done anything like that before. It didn't even have a calling function, and his eyes are drawn to a camera icon app on the screen. He recalls that it never had it before and starts to ponder on what it should be used for. Did it want him to take a selfie or something? He couldn't even take a picture because it had no snap button. While he's fiddling with it, the camera focuses in on the paw print he was previously sizing up and locks in on it, and it says, "Now loading." And then it becomes a new dungeon for him to play on the phone. The Ant Cave dungeon and the new Grade A Ancient City dungeon are now side by side, both ready to be played. Zhou Wen decides to try it since Li Juan and the rest hadn't arrived and he was free at the moment. He goes on to drip a drop of blood on the screen of the phone, and his character instantly arrives at the entrance of the Grade A Ancient City dungeon and walks in. He quickly notices a dimensional monster ahead of him. It's a skeleton soldier wielding a mace and wearing a helmet on his head. As Zhou Wen notices it, it also notices him and rushes forward, closing the gap instantly. Zhou Wen jumps back and the hit misses. He is unimpressed because the speed and strength of the skeleton soldier aren't that great, and he smiles. It's much easier than the ants. So he destroys it with a hit and a blue scale stone crystal drops. He is surprised. This is just the first monster. He absorbs it. This time he doesn't feel an excruciating pain like the last time when he learned the Divine Might's Fist. He gets a notification that he just learned the skeleton palm, and it's the skill that the skeleton soldier used, and it's a low level skill that consumes very little vitality. He then decides to head deeper to test the power of the new skill he just gained. He summons the mutated mighty ant he got the last time and rides it all the way, going deeper into the city, quickly dispatching any skeleton soldiers in his way. He is quickly disappointed because he didn't get anything else since the first skill stone, and he quickly notices a group of skeleton soldiers surrounding a skeleton on a skeletal horse. Clack! The skeleton appeared before him before he could react and pierces through his chest, instantly killing him. The screen goes black. Game over. Zhou Wen looks at the city's gate again and has a foreboding feeling. He sees a silhouette from the corner of his eyes and he turns to his right and sees Anjing, the girl who defeated him in one blow, and his new sister. She extends her hand to his face and says Uncle Feng, his dad, asked her to give him this. He extends his hand and something drops into his palm. It's a flash drive. And Nanjing leaves after criticizing him for being a waste. At this time, someone calls Zhou Wen's name. He turns around and sees Li Juan and the rest of the team all ready for the exam. Li Juan reminds him to just relax, follow behind and leave the grinding to the other team members of the team. And they reassure him that they will get first place since there are no talented people in Grade A Ancient City. The participants are told to gather in front of the examiner, and Zhou Wen sights Fang Roji with her new teammate and gives her a thumbs up, and she also wishes him well in the exam in her mind. The content of the exam was to kill skeleton soldiers and get points by collecting their core crystals. The total score will be decided by the total amount of core crystals. The examiner wishes them luck and they enter the rift. Zhou Wen is surprised because it looks exactly as it did in the game. The exam is underway. Different teams are rushing on slaying the skeleton soldiers. Zhou Wen notices how strong his teammates are and is confident in their ability, so he pulls out his phone to verify his previous conjecture. Li Juan notices that he's playing games on his phone again and doubts his abilities. Meanwhile, Zhou Wen verifies his thoughts. The game is an exact representation of the dungeons, down to the buildings and layout. Then he recalls his previous death at the hands of the skeleton general, and cold sweat runs down his face. But he analyzes that they are still a distance away from the skeleton general's domain, and if they stay in the exam area, they won't meet it. The other teammates quickly defeat the surrounding enemies and gather with Zhou Wen and Li Juan, and they decide to head deeper into the area to get more points in order to stay ahead of the other teams. Zhou Wen tries to talk Li Juan out of it, but the blonde-haired teammate says if he is scared, he should say so and just stay behind, and then tells Li Juan that they need to go deeper if they want to secure the first place. And the other teammate with a beanie agrees with him and assures Li Juan that there won't be any accidents. Li Juan thinks they are reasonable and tells Zhou Wen not to worry because the other two teammates are strong. Zhou Wen is hesitant but can't tell them what he knows, so he decides to find a way to defeat the skeleton general in the game first. So if anything happens, he can at least escape with Li Juan.
The two team members rush forward quickly,
defeating any skeleton soldiers they come across, while Li Juan and Zhou Wen walk behind, with Zhou Wen playing the game and trying to come up with strategies to defeat the skeleton general, or at least to escape from it. But he gets folded every single time and he can't accept the current situation, because the skeleton general kills him instantly no matter what he does, and he remembers all the clashes they've had up till that moment, and realizes that the skeleton general doesn't maintain that high speed all the time, only during a charge, which makes him think it must definitely be an essence energy skill. But he is still antsy because they might actually get wiped out if they fought it. And something quickly catches his eye. It's an essence energy crystal that just dropped from the skeleton soldier the blonde-haired teammate had just defeated. The blonde-haired teammate calls out to Li Juan and hands him the crystal, and Zhou Wen reminds Li Juan that they can head back since they've already gotten a high killing score. But the blonde-haired teammate says it's too early to return and criticizes Zhou Wen for being afraid despite not doing any work, and the other teammate also agrees that it's better to kill more to guarantee their first place position. Li Juan listens to all this and pulls out his phone to search for the highest class of monsters known in the city, but he finds no report of a legendary or higher level dimensional creature in the area nearby. So he says it's fine for them to head deeper, but Zhou Wen holds him back and asks if he believes in the sixth sense, and tells him about how he had been able to feel danger and avoid it since he was a kid, and how the feeling was very strong at that moment. And the blonde-haired teammate praises him for using the sixth sense as an excuse because he's scared, then goes on to yell at him and ask if he could handle the consequences of them not getting first place. And Zhou Wen retorts on how no student would dare leave the exam area since Grade A Ancient City isn't small, and how they've already gotten a lot of points and can hold on to their lead by killing in the circle and don't need to take any extra risks in an unknown area. Li Juan ponders and says that what Zhou Wen says is reasonable, and he's about to tell them to start heading back when a jade green dagger is pierced into his back, and the face of the beanie wearing teammate is revealed to be grinning wickedly. The blonde-haired teammate screams at Jiang Hao, the beanie wearing teammate, but is quickly sliced across his chest and told not to interfere by Jiang Hao. Li Juan is by the side standing and holding onto his stomach while bleeding, and says he never thought he would be betrayed, and asks Jiang Hao if it's his second brother who sent him, while his bleeding stops and the wound starts to close. Jiang Hao quickly identifies the art Li Juan is using as the invincible cornet divine art, and says how he never thought a promiscuous son like Li Juan, who hangs and flirts around with women, could cultivate an art that requires one to be a virgin.